This interview was conducted on July 12, 2014, near Brownsville, Tennessee, by Al Claiborne with Vietnam Marine veterans Allen Willyerd, Tony Milazzo, Doc Nunn, and Randy Gensamer. The recording of this conversation was done in conjunction with the Norman Lane Jr. Memorial Project, who holds the copyright.
The concept of these oral histories, especially from Vietnam veterans now, is a very big topic, popular topic, but obviously it's still up to the veterans whether they want to participate, if they want to go back and talk about things. And the reason, number one, we've got the four of you guys here, and we kind of talked about it in general terms as to whether you'd be interested or not. But the other thing that I think is unique about this opportunity is some of you guys have not been together in so long, that is as a group, that it's probably an opportunity for you guys to remember things together that, until 46 more years from now, you haven't even had a chance up until now, except over the phone or something like that, maybe in an email.
Well, only recently over the phone with Al.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, that kind of stuff. So it's a good opportunity, and whatever format this is recorded in, it's going to be available, we're not going to sell it or something like that. So it's just, it'll be for your use, if you wish, or your offspring or whatever, your family.
That's what was neat to me about the UT stuff. I went to several different sessions, and they asked some questions, but they wanted me more just to talk.
I think that's exactly the way I'm approaching it, because I don't have a lot of questions.
Well, but questions help.
Yeah,
start the
but
mind.
Like I'll take a couple of perfect examples in my mind. One is last Monday. Allen Willyerd calls me up at work to ask me some detail. I can't even remember. Something about the meeting or the event or something. And that was easy. And then we just started talking. And I don't know a lot of military history or Vietnam history. Most of what I know about where you guys were, I'd never heard of Cam Low till like January, February. Contan, yes, but not.
I'd never heard of it until I got there.
Not the details. And so Alan and I just kind of started going back, and he came up with this whole story or whatever about the possibility that Norman had been put up, I guess is the right word, or considered for the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry. And that led to me doing some more stuff, that's my job. There was a whole conversation in there. There was a whole conversation in there about that Andin marketplace battle that I had just learned about. And then the other one was when I just came out to the hotel the other day. And I said I was going to come out there at 3:30, and we were at 4 o'clock we were going to head to camp, and it was more like 5:30 or something like that. And, you guys are telling the stories, and you had the photographs and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just kind of like there as the facilitator. I guess if it wasn't for me, well, you wouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah, it's all your fault.
But have that being the case, and you guys getting together, just kind of go for it. So Alan has already done such a great job as your spokesperson from yesterday. And I've had so many people. The whole thing, the whole aura of the whole thing. You guys, the other Marine Corps League guys that were there, and I wonder when you met with those other Marine Corps League guys who you didn't know. But was it easy to just like that connect with them, or was it a bit?
That one was
they were their Marine Corps League in their uniforms, and they were their group, and they just kind of took over. That's how I felt.
Did they talk much about their experiences in Vietnam?
Well, the first guy I asked, I said, "Who were you with in Vietnam?"
Oh, he was in Korea.
I was in Korea.
Yeah.
I went, oh shit.
Yeah, the one guy was from Vietnam, but he wasn't 03. He was motor transport?
Motor transport, and there was air wing and
right.
stuff. It's just like, now grunts relate to grunts.
Yeah.
I get along with 03 just fine.
Okay. Which is,
that's
to me, on the outside,
that's kind of the points that I was making. If you're not 03, you're there to support us.
Mm-hmm.
And we
and there's
appreciate
10 people in support of 103.
How do I say it? You're not in our league.
Exactly.
They had their job, we had ours.
Yes. So now I'm just guessing, but the connection with John Carlos was
Oh, I'd
Wonderful.
I'd love to talk to that man some
Yes.
more.
Well,
any
thought he knew about this. He said I might stay through. I thought this morning. He's left. So, I think,
he's a real force.
Okay,
Yes.
I wanted to.
I mean,
Okay.
I love the description.
So that
a V8 with legs.
With
on
legs.
So that's interesting to me because it's not so much Marines and other Marines, although it certainly can be.
He was a grunt.
Yeah, he was an officer.
Combat.
Well, okay.
Special Forces. He was a ground pounder.
Okay.
You know.
Combat service related, we can identify with.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
motor
Green Berets and
transport.
Special
Oh,
Forces.
I got you.
They have this
You're
elitist
you're in
attitude.
Don Ha. You go to the NCO club. You get hot meals. You're on a cot at electricity.
And that may, there's one guy that was a friend of Norman's who had gone through Quantico. I think I mentioned his name. His name is Mike Riley. He lives in Medford, New Jersey. I think I knew about him. And he's the second post on Norman's virtual wall site besides yours, okay? And something about having lunch with Norman the day he was lost and so forth. And I got in touch with him back in the end.
That's Mike Riley that had lunch with Norman.
Yeah, the day he was killed. Yeah, at C3, I guess it would have been. I got it.
Camelo
Artillery base.
Camelo Hill, as we know it.
Yeah, right.
That C3 stuff confuses me.
Oh, okay. He was talking about C4 yesterday, so that's a different matter.
C4 is different stuff.
That was nice.
You can have a cup of coffee in 3 seconds. What do you mean you want to blow that bunker? Here, drink some coffee.
But this Riley guy, so I knew that he had known Norman the same way I knew you had known Norman from that virtual wall post. And then in the end of January, after I first made contact with you, I emailed Michael Riley again, and he was kind of responsive. And then he said he was a battalion motor transport officer. Well, me not knowing, I said, well, okay.
Yeah.
But, then after that, he kind of dropped out of the conversation. Now, some of it could have just been he wanted to bury it, but on the other hand, maybe there was a little bit
He's got other stuff going on, too. And, it's like, I've been involved with Vietnam since, the day I got there. Other people have taken it, put it away, and gone on with their life. Mm-hmm. It affected my life more than I was not able to do that. That's why I ended up with PTSD. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The classic sense of it.
Yeah.
Oh, you've only had 30 jobs in the last 30 years. You don't have any issues.
Now, Allen. One thing to follow up on. Allen gave a good account yesterday of graduating from high school, and then you were working at the Kroger after graduation.
Was that recorded yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's going to be on the DVD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I want his speech forever.
Oh, yeah, it'll all be good. Did you work with the Turner Milk Company then? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you got your notice to go down to Memphis with Jim Smith.
Right.
Then you're 1A. Now, did you get at that point, did you get a choice of service, or did you get something said you're going in the Marines?
No. I volunteered for Marines, but after back then, you went to the draft board, and then you had to go to Memphis to get what
Induction physical?
Yeah, you get a physical down there, and that determines whether or not you're 1A or what 4F is.
Or 4F or
4F is you're not qualified.
Right.
So when you go to Memphis and get your classification physical, and it comes back 1A, the clock's ticking. And at some point in time, you're going in the Army. I didn't want the Army. I had grown up wanting to be.
So if you didn't do anything else, you would have gone in the Army. It was like that.
Yes. At some point in time, when my name came up, they send you a letter that says, "Greetings, Uncle Sam requests your service."
You could have still ended up in the Marine Corps because
up until the day that you're sworn in.
Yeah, because they go down like a 1, 2, 3 Army, 4 Marine Corps, or it's random picking.
When at the time that I was there wasn't no draft in the Marine Corps.
The Marine Corps was not drafting at all.
No. I don't know when that started.
Well, they were in Pittsburgh. I know that.
sometime after 66,
They weren't
the
drafted.
Marine Corps did start drafting.
Yeah.
But in 66, the Marine Corps wasn't drafted. But they had, I
Well,
guess,
I'm
to
sorry,
try to
so
get
maybe.
enlistment, they had a 2-year
That's right.
program. Historically, the Marine Corps is 3 years or 4 years. That was it.
Yeah.
There wasn't no 2-year plan. But I guess during 66, they were needing men that they came out with the 120-day delayed program. You could join. I joined in May, and I went active in September.
So in May, you declared for the Marines.
In May, I was sworn into the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay. You were enlisted or whatever.
Yeah,
There's no backing up out
First,
of that one.
1st of May or whatever it was, but I raised my right hand and I
Now, was that back down in Memphis or
Yes,
their
it was.
recruiting station? I guess. Okay.
Well, see,
Millington.
my first cousin was married to a guy that had spent 8 years in the Marine Corps. At that time, he was a police officer in Memphis. And of course, it was family. So, I knew Kick and we'd visit and everything. So, when I got my 1A, I picked up the phone and I called Kick. They were a motor transport unit, Marine Corps unit in Memphis, and I called Kick and I said, Kick, I'm ready. And so I went down to Kick and we went out to we went out to that transportation reserve, and there was some, I don't know if he was an officer or a first sergeant, but anyway, and they swore me into the Marine Corps. And my 7 year enlistment expired in May. That was my enlistment date, was in May. So in what, 93? No.
No, 73. Is that what you mean?
73.
Yeah.
73,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
discharged
yeah,
from the Marine Corps
yeah.
in May. But yeah, I swore in down there.
Yeah, inactive duty. So you had a 7-year obligation versus 6?
Well, I thought it was 7. Was it 6?
We had 6.
Maybe it was 6.
Yeah.
6 years.
And some of that was active duty, and some of that was
Well,
reserve. Is that the
four was
way-
active for me.
4
and
active.
Two,
Yeah,
two
two active,
inactive,
4 reserve.
Reserve.
Inactive reserves.
yeah,
I didn't have
yeah,
to attend meetings or anything.
So that would have still carried you through 1970 in the active. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, me, I got
72.
February of 70.
Oh, yeah. Now, 2 years active, and I got my pink card in 68, and then I was 4 years inactive reserve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's 2 years active as opposed to
Yeah,
4.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then
Any
your pink card
combination
means you're
for a total.
on
Yeah,
active reserve or
when I
inactive
left
reserve.
El Toro, California, you have a military card and it's green. It's got your photo, your fingerprint, and says United States Marine Corps. Well, then when I got to El Toro, I spent 10 days doing the paperwork, and then when you leave El Toro, you get a pink card, and
Yeah.
that means that you're in the Marine
still
Corps
have my pink
Reserve.
card.
Now, Tony, how about you? So what was your set of circumstances going in?
I had been asked not to come back to the University of South Florida after a period of time. And when I got into this was December of 65. So I'm home now, early 66, and my father said, now what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to go into service. Okay. Shortly after that, I got a draft notice. Report for whatever. And I said, I started thinking, talking to people, I said, well, if I go in the Army, I said, I'm going to go for 2 years, and I'm going to end up in Vietnam. Not my idea of what I'm looking for. I said, I'm going to be smart. I'm not going to go in the Army. Do I want to go in the Air Force or the Navy? Well, everybody is talking about the Navy has the better schools. So I signed up for the Navy for 4 years instead of going in the Army for 2. Second week in basic training, you go through classification. You take all the tests.
Now, where was this? The basic
This is at Great Lakes.
Okay. So this is Navy.
This is Navy. I'm in the Navy. June 6,
Yeah, that's true.
June 6, 1966, I left Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn for the Great Lakes. Second week,
I beat you by 2 weeks.
we take the tests and all, and they look at the scores, and they see that when I was in Florida, I was actually studying pharmacy. Now, whether that had anything to do with it or what, I don't know. They said, okay, you're going to be a hospital corpsman. Okay, what's that? He said, you're going to work in a hospital.
Were you guaranteed an A and a C school? Cause
No, they just said you're going to go to a hospital course.
What is A and C school?
well, A is your job, and then C school is the specialty of that job.
All under the umbrella of corpsman. Oh,
Any jobs.
any job.
You know, radar tech, then you can become a nuclear radar tech, you know, specialty.
Now they told me hospital corps school. I said, okay, I'm going to be hospital corpsman. So I go home, I come back up to Great Lakes for hospital corps school. Start all the training and all, and everything was fine. And halfway through, you start learning things. The Marine Corps is part of the Navy Department. The Marine Corps doesn't have medics. They use hospital corpsmen. Oh,
They saved those secrets
wait a
until
minute.
after they
And we
got
had
your ass
one of the
tied up.
one of the instructors was a well-seasoned Navy chief, and when we found all this out, we started talking to him, and he started letting us know what we were in for. So, okay,
Rudely.
after you finish hospital corps school, you were required to spend 3 months at a stateside hospital, naval hospital, for training and all before you were eligible for orders. So figuring.
So you can learn to apply the shit you learned in school.
So we figured, all right, we get out of school in December. It's January, February, March. We can get orders in April. Okay. So they're looking for volunteers to go to Field Medical Service School.
Now, did you make it to this hospital?
Oh yeah, I finished.
Where was this?
At Great Lakes.
Oh, still at Great Lakes.
It was 14 weeks at Great Lakes.
It's Naval Hospital.
Naval Hospital Corps School.
Okay,
It was
yeah,
the same complex.
You know how cold it is at Great Lakes in December?
I would imagine.
So we volunteered for Field Medical Service School because that was 8 weeks. That's January and February. Now it's March, April, May. You can't get orders till June. But it's better. We're spending more time stateside
In
hospital.
theory.
In theory. So we
Clarify it.
get into Field Medical Service School. It turned out to be 8 weeks of boot camp at Lejeune with a little bit of combat medicine thrown in. Okay, so
Yeah.
come out. We were in great shape.
Staff Sergeant Johnson.
Big man.
6'6".
Now, was your
guy.
boot camp? It was more as being a
No.
Navy.
Navy boot camp. You went through boot camp like
Oh, it was
everybody else.
like you were
was
just
right
going into the
going
Navy.
to the Navy.
Kinda like
Still-
basic
you still
training
knew
in the
nothing.
If
Navy.
you couldn't swim, you could never graduate from boot camp. There was guys that have been in boot camp for a year.
So this is not Paris Island.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No,
No,
Camp Lejeune, we were at Moffett Point, the old motor T school.
yeah.
And that's where they had Field Medical Service School. It was, like I said, it was 8 weeks. You were up there at 5 o'clock in the morning on the drill field, doing your PT,
yeah.
running. Then you go to breakfast, and then you go through more training and all. So we did that for 8 weeks,
And go
and
marching through the swamps.
I ended up being out of there. I ended up transferred to the Naval Hospital, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay, and I worked
Now,
on-
when are we talking about now?
This is March.
The end of February.
End of February, I get
7.
March of
Yeah.
67 or
And
February
I'm there-
67.
I'm right in step with
We
him.
finished Field Medical Service School, went to Philadelphia, got on a bus, went to Philadelphia Naval Hospital.
Yeah.
Got there, at midnight?
Something like that.
yeah.
So you guys had been together since Great Lakes?
No.
Oh.
No, we were in the same field med platoon.
At Lejeune.
At Lejeune.
At Lejeune.
That's where you
Field
really
Medical Service School.
I mean,
were
he
together.
I was 2 weeks ahead of him in boot camp,
Okay.
and then corps school, and then actually my company was the first one in the history of the Navy during, quote, peacetime to go directly from hospital corps school to field med school. And for Reveille every morning, there was this Bill Cosby album. And it's the average life expectancy of a hospital corpsman from the time his foot first hits the water until he almost reaches the beach is approximately 7 seconds. That's what they played for Reveille for us.
Bill Cosby did this?
Yes,
he did.
One of his comedy albums, one of his early comedy albums. There's a
Pre-Vietnam.
there's
And
a
this is
skit on that.
66.
There's a skit on that.
Interesting.
And
So
they played
we ended up
that every morning for fucking Reveille.
We ended
This
up
is at Lejeune, but then by the time you
That
guys...
was at Great Lakes.
Oh,
that was a Great Lakes.
Okay.
They told
And I graduated December 15th, 66. And then 2 weeks off, and 1st of January, be in Lejeune.
And I graduated right before Christmas
66.
and reported the same day to Lejeune.
Yeah.
To Lejeune. And
There
so,
was actually 400 corpsmen reported all the same day.
yeah. And
Lejeune.
so, from the time you guys got to Lejeune, you were at least on the same time track.
Yes.
Yeah. Y'all got there the same.
We had the same end
Your
destination.
schedule at Lejeune
time.
was going to be the same, and then you both
It
went
all
to the
synced
hospital
up.
in Philadelphia.
So we took the same bus to
And this is
Naval
in
Hospital in Philadelphia.
March 67.
Right. I worked on the amputee wards, and most of that were Marines and other corpsmen.
MT? Is that what you said?
Amputees.
Oh, amputee, yeah.
The Philadelphia Naval Hospital was the amputee center for the East Coast and the psychiatric center. They had huge wings out of both ends of the hospital that just ward after ward after ward of amputees.
And I was out on the amputee
Returning
ward.
Vietnam. And,
Yeah, I was
and
out
this is
on the amputee ward.
this is a naval hospital.
Philadelphia
and
Naval
so
Hospital.
They're
Naval Hospital,
only
Philadelphia.
serving Department of Navy personnel, including Marines.
Well,
I mean,
they are part of the Navy.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not Army.
No,
not,
no,
okay.
no,
It's a
no.
But
service.
the job I got put on a cardiac ward,
Right.
which was taking overflow from the VA hospital in Philadelphia. So we had these old fucks. Some bizarre shit went on there. But it was my experience, my first hands-on medicine experience. And then after experiencing all this death and confusion, me and Jack Sparky Earhart got assigned to the delivery room.
Now,
We
were
were
you
delivering
like
babies.
taking the role of a primary care physician in these cases?
No, we were working under nurses.
We were
Oh,
working
under nurses.
We were like
officers.
nurses' aides,
Okay.
to equate it.
Nurses, they were all officers, Navy Medical Corps.
And even though there was a very high patient load, especially Marines coming back from Vietnam and so forth, the order of the number of doctors,
Well, you've
the
got
number of
a
nurses,
doctor and then a charge
that was still
nurse.
working
Right.
pretty.
The doctor may
effectively
cover
in that
2 or
time.
3 amputee
Yeah,
wards,
yeah.
and then you have the charge nurse, and you have a nurse on every shift. Then you have corpsmen working. And you learn about
And we got to do a lot of stuff.
we did.
That
We
you
did.
couldn't do in the civilian world without serious license.
See, the only view I have of this kind of stuff from even the movies, even. which is-
I've
the
never seen a
only
movie
two
portray it
that I
close.
would have any even picture of it are Born on the 4th of July with Tom Cruise, because he...
Believe it
Right.
or not, he was in our battalion.
Tom...
The what's his name?
Kovic.
Yeah,
Kovic,
Kovic.
yeah.
He was in.
Yeah, Ron Kovic.
I was going. So that's another story. After I got talking to you guys and realizing what the geography and Camlo and so
And
forth,
Oliver Stone
and
does a lot
that
of
movie comes on
accurate
TV.
shit.
Now I had seen it before, and I wasn't there. Maybe it's realistic, maybe it's not.
Oliver Stone
But-
does good, accurate stuff.
But the one thing that struck me early on in the movie is when he's in Vietnam. There's the Qua Viet River. Is that the right
Qua Viet.
Qua Viet. And
Mouth
I said,
of Qua
oh, that's
Viet.
it. Oh yeah, that's where those guys were.
Yeah.
So when you say unit, you mean 3-4?
2-4.
He was in 4th Marines.
4th
wasn't he?
Marines.
Fourth Marines.
Fourth
Fourth
Marines.
Right.
In our
And the
battalion.
The regiment.
And that was in the same.
We were in
Regiment.
3rd Battalion, 4th Regiment. So he was in the 4th Regiment. He was
Yeah.
in
He was in
2-4.
2-4.
yeah.
Yeah.
2-4.
And,
Right.
and Pete was at the mouth of the river directing all the artillery during that whole invasion. And the stories that man...
January of '68 is
No, that was April.
April of
April
'68.
68.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
65, wasn't it?
No.
Quiet River.
Well, I'm thinking
Well-
of the movie.
well,
the time
the-
that Ron Kovic was there.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
that
He was
yeah.
there when you guys were there.
Right. And that was April of '68.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Pete was there and he was 8 on, 8 off, just directing guns, and they just didn't have enough guns. And finally, Pete's, puts it, teacup, come up on scramble. And Pete answers, and it's some army guy. And he says, we're here and we got guns. And Pete runs out of the bunker yelling to the major, Major, the army just showed up and they brought guns. Because they were getting their asses kicked. Part of 3-4 had gone down to support them. Mike and I think India had gone down there for a few days, and that
That could have been, well, Bill Willett, he was in Mike, but then he also went to this Combined Action Group, something like that.
CAC.
CAC, okay.
unit.
Yeah.
Which was still that was still combat, right?
Combat,
Oh,
yeah.
But it was with civilians.
Oh, okay.
It was
Okay.
with the
Arvins.
the South Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so the only other movie version that I've ever seen that even dealt with disability or amputees was Coming Home with John Voight. That was way back in the
Yeah,
late
but
70s.
it was still very, very good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay.
Well, now, where,
Okay.
You're a nurse. Now, where are we going?
I'm in Philadelphia, and then life is like any other day. You're treating all these amputees that come back, and you're learning more just from speaking to them about what you're in for. Should you be lucky enough to get orders?
And
so
that's not kind of luck you were hoping for.
no. So come September of 1967, the end of September, you get called to personnel. You have orders. Sometime in October is what they said. You're going someplace in the Pacific. Well,
There's only one place.
there was only one place in the Pacific that people knew about. So the end of, or middle of October, I go on 30 days leave. And I am to report at the time to Treasure Island, San Francisco,
Oh, okay.
on, I think about the 10th of November, 67. Okay. I'm home on leave. I get a telegram to report to San Bernardino, California. Okay. So
Norton Air Force Base.
So I get out there, and we stay there for a day or two.
Tell them what you run into when you got to San Bernardino.
The terminal is a trailer, little trailer. I go in, one guy there, no lights, no nothing. This is, there was nothing there. I said, I've got these orders.
Is he Navy or at
No,
this point?
he was.
This is,
I said, I have to get out.
oh,
to
this is
air
the
base.
actual airport.
I have to get out to the airbase. Okay. I said, So I go outside, and with that, Air Force staff car pulls up, officer's car. Sergeant gets out, and I'm sitting there, and he goes inside, and the window rolls down. Son, come here. I look over. It's Air Force Bird Colonel. So I, do the whole thing. He said, "What are you doing?" So I told him. I said,
I'm trying to get home.
I'm on my way home. I'm trying to get back to New Jersey. I said, no. So I showed him my orders, and I said, I've got to get out to the airbase. He said, all right, it's just a minute. And with that, Sergeant comes out. He says, Sergeant, get that man's bag, throw it in the back of the car. We're taking him for a ride.
So what was the terminal you were at that was this trailer? Who's organized?
As far as I knew, that was the airbase, the airport terminal.
That was the San Bernardino
it wasn't,
airport,
it wasn't
not
the
the
actual
air base.
No, I.
So had you just gone there by mistake? Was that the deal? Thinking you didn't have to go to this little trailer to get to the air base.
I went and got a ticket to San Bernardino.
Okay.
That's
That's where they drop you off.
Yeah, that's where they dropped me off. So,
Okay.
so,
So
Yeah.
it was just
so we took a
confusion
ride.
about the Air Force base
So
versus
I was driven
the
out to
airport.
where I was supposed to be.
Okay.
In the staff car.
Yeah.
And we pull up, the sergeant opens the door, I get out, and Colonel looks at me and says, Sergeant, get the man's bag, take it inside for him. Of course, that went over like, he walked in the door, dropped it right there. So then, then everything took care of itself.
E3.
Yeah, I'm an E3, I'm a nobody.
And the surgeon's having to.
So with that, we go through all the bureaucratic stuff, and then they put me on a Flying Tiger Airlines. I'm in a summer uniform. We flew from San Bernardino to Anchorage, Alaska. Got to Anchorage, Alaska at 4 o'clock in the morning. Everybody get off the plane. Now it's 16 degrees. We're in summer uniforms. So you got 160 some people that are running to another trailer that's the terminal. So looking
First
for
come,
coffee.
first
We were there like 45 minutes. Took off. Again, Flying Tiger Airlines. We stopped in Guam to drop something off, and we went to Camp Smedley Butler.
Yeah.
The Air Force, Kadena Air Force Base.
Yeah.
In Okinawa.
Yeah.
And there for 3 days, and then you start flying into Vietnam, and you get out there in the morning, and they fill up the plane, and that's it. And the next plane, somebody else.
So is
gets
this
on.
a big jet going from Okinawa to
No,
Da Nang?
it's a
or is this
4-engine
like
prop.
C-130 or
C-130. It's a transport plane.
Okay.
Cargo
So it's
transport,
just-
troop transport,
Okay.
4-engine, and they start filling up. All right, you get on. I'm the last one on the plane, and as the door slides down, there's a little pad that drops down. That was my seat for 13 hours, leaning against the window, flying into Da Nang.
13 hours from Okinawa to
So I ran into
Japan? I mean,
Fubai?
to Da Nang?
Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause I
13
had
hours.
13
I'm-
hours.
13 hours. I'm sitting there on what's a prop?
Well,
It's not a
yeah.
jet. I'm just leaning on the
You
cold
can't,
window.
whip it and make it go faster.
So I get to Da Nang, and I'm looking around and I'm saying, oh, okay. You know, not the cleanest place in the world, but I guess I got it.
Now, what's this, November 67?
This is November 67.
Yeah.
So okay. I'm there overnight. They say, okay, now you're going to get on this. You're going to fly up to Fubai.
And this is less than a
Fubai is north of
Yeah, it's north. So I ran into him up there,
in
and
Fubai.
and then Hue is further north of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well,
So
it actually is right next to
No,
it.
so I land there, and now the sidewalks are wooden planks. They could take a ladder and lay it down.
Yeah.
And you live in in a
The
decent hut,
boardwalk.
not as nice as the ones in Da Nang. And I'm looking around, I'm saying, wow, I'm a city boy. I don't know, there's camping stuff,
But beer are 10 cents.
there for a day or two. So you're going to get on the
Just
C-130.
overnight, I think.
Okay, and you're going up to Dong Ha. That's your company rear area. So we get on, fly. We're landing.
That's another C-130.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah. Or 123.
or
Or
123.
something, yeah. In the genre.
Yeah.
It's a metal
it was-
runway that somebody had put down metal plates. That was the metal runway, and I'm saying, wait a minute. It doesn't even look close to what I had down there. And I said,
It
okay,
wasn't.
this is all right, whatever. I said, I stopped somebody. I said, I have to go to 3-4. Where do I go? He says, all right. He says, this is a 6x, big truck. He says, tell him where you're going. He'll jump on the back, and he'll tell you when to get off.
Yeah.
Walk out in the street, now I'm knee deep in mud.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
It
not
was a little
dry.
wet. And I said, Jesus, not knowing still not knowing what I'm in for. So I go up and I report to 3-4. They send me down to the battalion aid station. And I'm there, now they're living in tents on a cop. I said, okay. And he said,
With slits.
with
in the
slits in
ground.
it. Yeah, and he said, okay. I said, well, I'm here. He said,
This is
okay.
monsoon season? November?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that was...
And they said, okay, tomorrow,
Kind of the end of
tomorrow,
it.
he says, we'll get you your gear, and you go out into the bush. This isn't the bush. I mean, for a city boy, this was the bush.
This is the motherfucker.
Little did I know.
Period. Yeah.
Dong Ha was headquarters for 3-4? 3-4.
Well,
If
Third
you want-
battalion, or was it 4?
everybody's rear was in Dong Ha.
Yeah.
And then they just
Everybody.
spread out.
Oh,
North
all
Marines,
Marines
The
in
9th
Ninth
Marines,
Marines.
26
Ninth
Marines.
Marines, 26.
They all had their own.
Oh,
They
okay.
all had their own areas.
Okay.
It's
set
a
up.
big base. It's like
But
50
like everybody went through Dong Ha, regardless.
pretty much.
Now, Bill Willett told me this, and I think somebody else confirmed. I can't remember who it was. He said, and he was an officer. He got to Da Nang. He knew he was going to be with the 3rd Marine Division, and that's all. And then when he got to Da Nang, they said go to Dong Ha, and that's where he found out he was going to be originally HNS 3-4.
Yeah.
Is that about the way it went?
Well, for officers, maybe not.
Well, what about you? I mean,
when I got to
didn't
Da
know.
Nang,
We didn't know till Fubai.
We
when
didn't
I
know
checked
till
in,
Fubai.
when I finally got to Da Nang and checked in, they told me in Da Nang, you're going to Kilo 3-4.
oh, really? Okay.
So then I got on the C-130, and I'm like, Tony,
You still went to Dong Ha, but you knew.
Yeah, they said.
Now you didn't know where you were going, but
Didn't
you
know
know
where,
who you were
didn't-
going with.
We
We
got on
may
the
have been told in
C-130, and we flew
Fubai.
in. We
Yeah.
flew,
They were going to
We
Kilo
flew into
3-4.
Dong Ha.
We were
I
told
don't-
in Fubai.
I don't think so.
We
I
were
think
told we
got
were going to 3-4,
3-4
and that's where we
Okay.
had to report. So we got up to Dong Ha,
until we got to Dong Ha.
take
we
the
didn't
truck
know
to the
where.
3rd Battalion,
Yeah.
4th Marine area, and report to the medical battalion aid station.
Where did Kilo Company come up?
Well,
This was the
we're in
battalion aid
3-4.
station for
In
3rd
Dong
Bata-
Ha.
for the 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines.
Right.
Yeah.
BAS
The
battalion,
first
they
words
said.
I heard are incoming mail, and I'm going, I'm not getting a letter yet. No, dumbass, get in the trench. It's incoming artillery.
What do we know?
So I jump in this trench that's full of water. And this guy's yelling at me. No, don't jump in there, you dumbass. You get wet. I ain't dead, motherfucker.
Now, okay, so let's get the timing on you two guys going into Fubai. Now,
Same day.
This is November.
different flight, maybe.
Different
From
flight.
This is
No.
November 67. Yeah.
Same day.
Right.
Yeah.
November 15th.
And we met up in Fubai.
November 15th.
No,
No.
before that.
Before
because
that. The 12th?
Okay.
I'm going to go the 13th because Marine Corps
Okay.
birthday,
Yeah,
we were
yeah,
on
yeah.
Okinawa. Veterans Day, I gave shots to about 1,000 Marines with the gun. And I think we left on the 13th.
Okay. Now, Alan, you were a little bit ahead of them in terms of getting into Vietnam.
Yeah, I was already.
October or something like that?
1st of November.
1st of November.
In
Just
that
2
part,
weeks.
Yeah.
So Norman, well, I don't know when he got to Da Nang from Smedley Butler, but I know his official date in country was
Pretty
November
close to
15th,
the 5th,
whatever.
15th, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that when you landed in Da Nang or Fubai or whatever?
Yeah, well,
No, anyway.
Then
But
at Battalion
that's
Station,
pretty amazing. I
Then
mean,
they
quite
we
honest.
found out we were going to Kilo 34, and they were in the bush. And I looked around and said, "This isn't the bush."
I'm from Jersey.
I'm from Jersey. We don't have stuff like
This
this.
is the bush, man.
You know,
I ain't
like
going no
my wife
further.
used to say, to her, camping is no beach, no bar, and no air conditioning.
Now, were you married at the time?
No, I wasn't married.
Were any of you married at the time?
I was.
You were married at the time.
Not me.
Not you. Okay.
No, I was 20 years old.
Oh, you were okay. Yeah.
I got over there.
I had
I was-
21. But
I was 20 years. I
there
turned
wasn't quite
21
a-
in March
yeah.
of 1968.
Well, I turned 21 on Hill 689.
Okay. All right.
April
Okay.
68.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I knew you were 20 when you were over there
18. 18.
He's the baby.
in '68.
He's the baby.
So he's only 2 years older than I am.
Yeah, he's the baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
3 hearts.
Okay. Now,
18.
when you first went into the bush, so to speak, you went to C2 or washout.
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 Which I guess that on the map, the book and the content.
If you got there the 1st of November, you went to Camlo Hill. I guarantee it. I'm not going to argue with you about it, but
On the map that you gave me in the book of content, it's listed as C3 Bridge. Is what's on that map.
Well, now there are 2 bridges.
Yeah, well, there's one at
there's
Camlo,
Camlo.
and then the next bridge up is C3 Bridge, and that's the washout.
Yeah.
That's the closest to Cartier.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they came off of Contien. Kilo came off of Contien and came to Camlo Hill.
Which was C3.
That's at the washout.
On the map, from what I remember, we should have brought the book. There was
Yeah, sure.
Contien, there was a bridge, washout, whatever, and then there was C3 in vertical order.
See, there's
So,
like, what was it, like 2 C3s?
No.
There was what's, anyway, it said C3, and then in parentheses it says C3 Bridge, remember?
There is something there, but I don't know. Obviously, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that map that's in the book.
Yeah.
That we looked
Maybe
at.
that's
Yes,
it.
we
Yeah,
looked
it
at
said
this morning.
C3
Yeah.
Bridge.
Well,
And that's
I
what
believe my mind and
Tony and I
Lieutenant
were
Wynn's
saying, hell,
book.
that's the
Okay.
washout.
All right.
And,
Now, okay, so
I'm not
he's at the washout when he goes in November 1st or so.
Well, it
Where
was
did
after
you
the
go?
first. It was right
Yeah,
after the first.
right
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
time frame. Where did you go?
Is that it?
Camlo Hill.
Oh,
Camlo Hill.
okay. So you
Camlo
went-
Hill.
Otherwise known as C3 or artillery base.
Well, it was never known to me as C3
Was it known to you as
until
the artillery
this
base?
discussion. It was a support base.
Okay.
You know, 81 mortars.
Yeah, okay.
And they had some artillery.
Right. Okay.
They didn't have 175s there,
Yeah.
which is the big stuff.
Okay.
But I think they had 155s, maybe.
There was something up in the northeastern corner.
Oh, Camp Carroll.
No, at the base, at the washout. There was something over there. Some kind of gun over there.
Big gun that
I don't-
fired
I don't
out
remember. It was heading north. That was looking north.
north and along the coastline.
Mm. Okay. Now, did you go to the same place?
Camlo Hill.
When did you guys meet, if you remember? Did you
Oh,
meet in that?
in Fubai.
Oh, you recognize, or well, you didn't recognize it.
we knew
but-
each other from
We knew each other from
field
Philly.
med school.
Okay, so that was a
and
small enough
Philly.
group there that you guys had
Right, and then we met again
mingled. Okay.
in Fubai.
Okay,
In
okay.
Fubai, because that was 3rd Medical Battalion. That's where we reported.
They had I don't know if they would call it, maybe it wasn't a battalion aid station, but they had a significant...
No, they had a medical battalion, 3rd Medical Battalion in Fubai.
Yeah, but at Camlo Hill
No, I was the BAS.
Battalion Aid Station,
Yeah.
which is similar to Battalion Aid Station at Dong Ha.
Yeah, just small in a different location.
Oh, okay.
But
Similar.
Fubai controlled where the corpsmen went.
Oh, okay.
And it was 3rd Medical Battalion of the 3rd Marine Division.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, okay.
I mean, we had a huge intensive care unit. We had wards for everything.
For both of y'all to have come to Kilo, was we that short a corpsman? I guess we was.
No, you weren't short. It was just their time to
It was
rotate back.
rotation,
back.
rotation time. you know,
And the reason we went to 3-4 and not someplace else was the luck of the draw.
absolute luck of the draw. There was 4 people, and I have the paper in my stuff at home, in Fubai. First guy, 1-9. Second guy, Milazzo, 3-4. Third guy, me, 3-4. Fourth guy, 1-9. Both of them killed.
That's what I started to say. Y'all
The
were
other two
right
guys
in
were
there
killed.
about- You lucked out on
April
3-4.
16th,
Yeah.
the one
You lucked out.
the one guy was killed on Hill 689.
That's
on
why I said the
April
luck of the draw.
16th. You have no idea how lucky we were. I mean, it was like, if they just changed the names around, we'd be dead motherfuckers right now.
Now, when you showed up so your assignment, I guess if that's the right word, is with Kilo, but with the Battalion Aid Station there?
No,
Or just
we were
wherever
with the
Kilo
platoon.
went?
into the platoon.
Right to the platoon.
Wherever Kilo went,
Right.
you went.
Yeah, I bunked with the 2 guys that one of which I was going to replace. I bunked.
Now, which one was this?
Doc Smith.
Doc Smith.
Smith, not Wilson, though.
No,
But-
no, Doc Smith.
Doc Wilson was with weapons.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can't say I replaced him, but I went to weapons.
Yeah, yeah.
And then rotated through all the, because weapons didn't go out on ambushes, because they were mortars. So I would fill in with each different platoon.
When you say mortars and weapons, do you mean the 81 mortars
No,
or 60s as
60s.
well?
60s.
60s in particular.
81s were not in the field with
That's
us.
the way he, if it was
Right,
multi-company
unless there were 2
operation.
companies.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
We know we
81s
had
were
60s in the company.
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
right.
If it
And
was
We
one
didn't have
company,
81s in the company.
if it was one company, the 60s.
But
were.
they still belong to the weapons
Yes.
platoon in the
right,
company.
and I was the weapons platoon corpsman. But since weapons didn't go on ambushes, mortars didn't, I would just fill in with each, because a platoon had 3 squads. You send out 3 squads, there's only 2 corpsmen per platoon. So I had to fill in the gap.
And so you have said Tony was your squad?
No, he was in my platoon.
Platoon
But I
corps.
tried to keep him around my squad.
Okay.
I was assigned to the 1st platoon.
Okay.
That was one. That was
Of
my
which there were
assignment.
3 squads.
Three
As long
squads.
as I could
3
keep
squads
him right
with 2
But
corpsmen.
2 corpsmen. I got you. Okay. That makes sense.
Me and Ed Bailey.
Okay.
Yeah, and supposedly they've been trying to change that in the current Marine Corps to have 3 corpsmen per platoon, because it doesn't make sense to have 2.
Now, but you were with weapons from the beginning? But then you said, you went wherever they needed.
I was with every platoon. That's how I got around more.
As long as it was in Kilo Company.
Right. See, just about
Yeah,
every night.
same with you.
Just about every night, a squad would go out and set up an ambush, and the corpsman had to go with them. So I would go, Ed Bailey would go, and then John would fill in the 3rd night. Otherwise, we were going out every night.
Yeah,
You know, fellas, all the ambushes that I went out on, I never had a corpsman on my ambush.
It was.
I'm just curious.
We went out, and it started to rain, and I didn't think about it. And
I'll be out the
Doc,
window.
you go to
I don't-
sleep. We'll wake you up if we need you. And I
Yeah.
did. And next thing I know, somebody's sitting on my chest beating the hell out of me. Why? Well, it had rained. And there was a little gully. and I had rolled over in my sleep, and I was underwater. And I come up spitting and sputtering. I was making too much noise. So they jumped on me to shut me up.
Yeah, well, the first ambush at Camel Hill, they were waking my ass up going, Doc, you can sleep on an ambush. You just can't snore.
I remember that. I think it was Baker. Black fella was sitting on my chest hitting me.
No, it was Baker. That name's familiar.
What was this event?
No, it was first squad. We had gone out on an ambush. We had gone out on a squad side ambush. And it was, misty and rainy, whatever. And, Doc, you go to sleep. We'll wake you up. It's your turn to, do the radio watch. Okay, so I went to sleep. Well, it was raining. And next thing I know, somebody's on my chest, beating me, trying to shut me up, cover me up. I had rolled over into water. And I woke up spitting and sputtering and coughing and making a lot of noise. And he was trying to shut me up, but he was sitting on my chest trying to beat me to shut me up.
Legitimate.
Never went to sleep
thing
on
to
the
do.
ambush again.
What was radio watch? How can you explain that?
You have to call in, or they call in periodically to get your situation report. You sit
Every
with
30.
Now you have a radio man.
Yes.
But this is you.
See,
This way somebody could go to sleep.
This is
Oh,
why,
so the radio man could go to sleep.
this is why I don't ever remember corpsmen. When I went out on a bushwhack, a fire team's got three. A squad's got 3 fire teams, and on the bushwhack you have a gun team. So you got four. You got 4 teams. It's supposed to be 4-man teams. Never had that many men. But we would go out, and I'd set a fire team here, machine guns here, fire team here, fire team in the rear, and then me and Minton was right in the middle. And I had this. Are you talking about the boy with the big arms? Was that you?
The picture.
Yeah,
I've seen
yeah.
it. Yeah. Well, you and him, there's a picture of you hugging him
Yeah, and
from Charlotte.
he would be in front of me. He was a gunner, and me and Minton would be right here. And so if I wanted the gun to open up, I'd grab his foot, and if I twisted his foot, that machine gun opened up. But yeah, me and Minton would be in the middle, and we'd take turns, maybe an hour, 2 hour, with the radio. We set the radio on the ground, and then you sat there with the mic. And about every 30 minutes to an hour, whenever, they'd say whatever your designation was that night.
Kilo 1 Alpha, this is Kilo 6.
Yeah.
You sit, if you sit reps a raw secure key, they hand set twice.
Yeah, they just say sit rep.
Sit
And
rep.
you go. And if you didn't
If you got two, everything was fine.
yeah.
If they didn't hear from you, there was a problem.
Yeah.
Now, when you say
And if you were
fire,
snoring,
so
you were
machine guns,
they would've
I
heard that
understand. That's
anyway.
M60, right?
M60.
When you say fire team, are those just guys with M16s?
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's just a team.
Okay.
It's supposed to be 4 men, but it never had 4 men. And so I remember the fire team, gun, fire team, me and Minton. Where was a corpsman? I never said a corpsman.
Would have been with you.
well,
But
if you only had 4 men, that was an LP.
No, this is the whole squad.
A squad, there was a corpsman there.
Yeah, we went out on every ambush.
Okay.
Thank you for not remembering this.
That'll
We
be
went
over
out
there.
We went out on every ambush.
We'll have to do some more work on that,
Yeah.
and then in 46 years when we have the next season,
So
we'll have the answer.
I never remember a corpsman being with me on any ambush I ever went on.
yeah, and it was just from
Okay,
then from
we're
location
not
to
making
location.
it up.
From location to location.
I remember Marines being on the ambushes I went on.
You learn. You make friends. You lose friends.
Cab Leroy tried to
And,
send me out on an ambush with the 101st Airborne when they came up to Kamlo District Headquarters.
I remember that.
And
Set
I
up an
said,
L said
no.
They got more.
I said, I'm not going. He said, good, you don't have to. They just asked. Because they had no medics left.
What time frame was this? Early 68?
April 68.
Oh, April 68.
We're getting ready to go to Quezon.
I had to go out with them.
You didn't have to.
Yeah, I did. And they I remember when we got
Why
out
did
there.
you have to?
I remember when we, because I didn't want to say no. I know,
See,
I know. My
You
stupidity.
didn't have to.
He went out. He sets up an L-shaped ambush. Okay, Doc,
Fucking
you go down there on the end.
The end of the ambush.
I said, no
Come on.
way. I said, I'm back here. If you need me, this is where I'm going to be. But I'm not sitting down on the end. You go sit out on the end.
Yeah.
This is before you guys were
That's
going out
why-
there. I said,
the
no.
Army, is a bunch of stupid fucks.
I said, we're not that far out there
Green
now.
Berets. I
said,
have no respect
I said,
for
you
them.
call them up right
Really?
now,
Yeah.
and you tell them, I'm
Don't
coming
tell
back
John
in.
Carlos I said that.
I'm not going to sit out there in the end of the ambush.
Yeah.
So these overnight ambush listening posts, whatever the right word is, this would be going out at like dusk or something.
Yeah,
Roughly
basically.
speaking.
What it was is I guess the colonel, the intelligence of they would figure out where they
Oxymoron.
thought that maybe the most what was the best route for the NBA take to get to the company. So you set an ambush out there.
Early warning.
You're
system.
just an early warning system for the company. If they come in, you open up, the company hears it, and then you're just kind of out there.
Back.
You're just kind of out there. Well, good luck now. If there's a battalion coming down, 200 NVA, and there's 12 of you out there, it's like good luck after you open up. But anytime I went out,
march and run.
And run.
when I went out at Kingsbury, which was the mortar man, I'd sit down with Kingsbury and I'd say, Kingsbury, I'm going to be right here. Now, instead of trying to get a map and give coordinates over the radio, I'd say, I want fire mission 1, fire mission 2, fire mission 3, fire mission 4. And so he knew if I called back and I said, Kingsbury, fire 1, well, he knew the coordinates for that. And so he's dropping mortars on that. And then, of course, the last thing you do is, sink us. That means bring them right in on top
Right
of
on
them.
top of it. Wow.
You overrun.
And that happened.
It never happened to me.
Oh, it never did.
No.
Okay.
No, you don't easily walk away from
Yeah,
those.
exactly.
You really try to not have the ambush trigger.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of cut off.
Well, it depends if you want a steak or not, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But you always one of these overnight or whatever
You had one every third night.
ambush setups was done. Then you came back to C2 or Washington.
Wherever our base was, yes.
Wherever we were. I
You
mean,
came back to the
ambushes
next
only
day,
went out
and then
maybe
you got to make
1,000 meters
maybe
at the most.
day-long patrol.
No, they
Yeah.
didn't
During
go
the daytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't
Yeah.
go out 1,000 meters.
Now, when y'all would go out on these things, could you give me a rough idea how far away from the base could you have been?
Miles.
No, we didn't. Ambush didn't go out.
No, not the ambush. No, the day patrols. Day patrols.
Oh, the patrol.
But these are always marching out from the base, or would these be heloed in?
No.
No,
These
march
are all
out.
marches.
Patrols or
Either one.
no? Well, we went out. You always went out in a staggered column if that's what you're talking about. You had your point, lieutenant, then the next squad, then the next squad, and you was all staggered out.
But I mean, you're walking.
You're walking out.
You're
You're
not
not
being
walking.
You're not
carried out.
helicoptered out for patrol.
See, the Marine Corps didn't have very many.
You're not
helicopters.
transported out for
The
patrol.
Army did.
You
The
walked.
Army flew every fucking where.
You walked out for
And I
patrol.
hated them
We
for
humped.
that.
We humped.
Lock and load
right.
as you leave the gate.
Now, a bushwhack, you'd go out quarter
300?
mile,
300 yards.
about a quarter, something
Yeah.
like that, 400 yards out of the way.
Yeah.
Now, patrol, God, you may go 5,
1,000,
6,
2,000.
7, 8, 10 miles.
Yeah.
Make a big
But
swing.
still,
Just
back
make a big
it would be a
sweep. Back
day
end, yeah.
long.
Yeah, you just make a,
And return home. I mean, the Army would go out and then dig it at night somewhere in the bush.
You go out
Stupid
one
shit,
gate,
just
and
stupid shit.
come back in the other gate.
So once you got in your locations, Camlo Hill or Washout, it was just real fast that you were
Daily
inserted
patrol.
into
There you were.
action.
That was it.
That
You were
was
there.
it. There was no further in country.
You could walk out of 10 patrols and not see a thing, and you're just going out there for a walk.
But once you got in country, whether it was Phu Bai or whether it was Da Nang, and then you went through Dong Ha, you were just getting processed. You weren't saying they weren't saying
no, that was-
now you're here. I'm going to teach you this thing.
No,
you were.
no,
it was a
there
package.
wasn't
was
no more teaching.
It was
Your
a package
training was
deal.
done.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
just the steps to the end point of where you ended up.
It's on
Now,
the
at
job
least in your case, you had gone through this guerrilla warfare training at was it Lejeune,
training. Yeah.
which I guess they had assimilated some things
Yeah,
they
see,
had
now
learned from
Well,
people.
I went through it in the streets of South Philadelphia. trying to get back to the hospital. That was guerrilla warfare too.
all
It was
Marines-
just
all
different.
Marines went
You had
through
to talk
the war.
splib dude.
But so anybody that went to Vietnam, even back in 65, 66, they would have gone through it, but at the Camp Pendleton.
Right.
Okay.
Now, 65, I'm
Well,
not
okay.
sure.
But
66,
relatively early.
Yeah, 66 on, up until, I'd say August.
Our
of,
guerrilla warfare training was at Camp Lejeune
August
and
of,
following
of,
Swamp
of
Fox into the woods,
67.
into the river.
We went through, we were the first ones to go through it.
Into the
They
river.
They had just opened
Yeah.
that up.
Did they seem like they were, like it was what you when you got in country? Of course.
Okay.
Did you feel like it
No
was?
way.
The
can't
instructors were
replicate that.
Vietnam
No.
veterans, and they could give you had a general idea, but
It wasn't
A lot
like
of it,
downtown
when-
Philadelphia.
when our
But
instructors were
not
over
even
there,
close.
they were still around a lot of civilians.
Yeah.
And they had hooches built out there and how to go into a hooch and what to look for on the ground. Well, when I got to, washout, GLN, Quezon, yada, yada, no civilians, all the villages
It was
were.
we were
So
in
it
a
was,
free fire
we-
zone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was a
that-
very,
yeah.
a
that I
very
read.
unique area.
So
in Vietnam.
was that all of I Corps or
No.
just north of Dong Ha.
Yeah.
okay?
Now, there
Sort
was
of
one
parallel
village
to the
north of Dong
DMZ.
Ha.
Yeah, there was.
There was one village north of Dong Ha. Because that's where on that road sweep I got them
Well,
little smoking the
Camlo
cigarettes.
District Headquarters was north of Dong Ha, and
Right.
that was not a free fire zone.
Right. Well, that was because of that little
More
ville right
west.
there.
Right. When there was that Cackville, and that was not a free fire zone.
Well, now, yeah,
But
see, out from Cam Low was that.
anything north of the washout was.
Evidently, yeah.
Yeah, that was further. Yeah, that,
Yeah.
Because when I was at Cam Low, that's when I run a squad size. They separated us. I don't remember what month it was.
Is this making any sense
Yeah.
to you?
Had
To me,
had to
yeah.
been
Okay.
before we went. Of course, and that's
Shit,
before
I
we went to
experienced
Quezon.
some of it. I have a hard time making sense of.
But they separated us. And my platoon was at Cam Low District Headquarters.
Right.
Now every night there was a cat village out there, which that consists of 4 Marines and a bunch of Arvins. And so my job every night was to take my squad and go out there and reinforce those Marines because they had been hit at some point previous to that. Well, Arvins are the bravest people in the world until one bullet flies and then you see them gone. So they sent my squad out there to back up them
Yeah, I
4
would
Marines
trade
that
them in
was out
for
there.
rocks any day of the week.
And that's when some different things happened. I would go out and spend the night with them, and then we'd get up and we'd make a squad size patrol right back around into Cam Low. And we got up one morning and we'd go through that village, another village that was right out there by them. Well, there's just little old dirt sidewalks or dirt streets, and they ain't wide as this rug right here. And so Vietnamese, they don't have money. They barter. Give you one chicken, they'll go out and cut wood, and cutting wood back then consisted of a little old branch about that long, but they'd have a big bundle of it. Mm-hmm. And so we'll give you one chicken for that bundle of wood, yada yada. They barter. Well, every day when we'd go through this village, man, you're bumping into them, and of course then you're thinking, who's got the grenade that's gonna walk up?
It's like Times Square.
We're bumping into them and mingling in, and we're trying to get through the little village. So one morning we pull up there, they're all in their hooches, and they're looking out at us. Whoa. I said, hold up. Take up a defensive position. So
What's
they
wrong
we
with this
set up.
picture?
And so I called Cam Low, and our friend Fish was a radio man, but company radio. And I said, Fish, I got problems. And he said, what is it? And I said, told him. I said, they're out here. I said, today they're in the hooches looking out. There ain't a soul moving in this village. He said, hold up. So probably about 15, 20 minutes, 2 Hueys sitting up there. And I said, okay, go ahead. So we walked on through the village, never had any trouble. No problem.
They were out there support.
Just
they were
because the
gunships.
Hueys had showed up.
They were
Gunships.
gunships.
Yeah. Not transportation.
Yeah.
We didn't have any designated Huey transportation. There's all gunships. And of course, at some point in time, we got the new Cobras. We had Cobras coming in.
Yeah, we still didn't get rides. They just
No.
Well, there
supported
was
us
a
as
Cobra was
gunships.
only like a 2-seater, wasn't it? Or something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah, gun, boy, fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So this time that you were in Camlo Village, Is that what? And then you would do these to support this CAC group.
Mhm.
This is in '68.
Yeah, that had been right before we went to Quezon, I guess. Quezon was
That was in
underneath.
May.
Huh?
When you went to Quezon, was in May of '68
April.
or April?
Yeah.
Okay.
This had to have been pre-April.
April
because
15th.
Quezon was surrounded because the air was full of choppers. Let's bring him back. As a matter of fact, on another patrol, we went out, and of course there was a bunch of old abandoned rice fields, and so it was kind of a walk through the tulips. It was we thought scary. Anyway, we was walking back around, and we run up on this old rice levee. Well, me and Sadly are standing there with our foot propped on it, just taking in the beautiful sunshiny day.
About that high.
Looking around, just, okay, let's go back in, get something to eat, yada, yada, yada. Well, as a kid, or even now, airplane or something comes over and you look up at it, well, the sky's full of choppers. Well, here comes a medevac in a Huey. I guess that when a medevac went out, it had a gunship with it for support. Mm. So they're flying along there, and we're sitting there just watching them, just something to do. And they start, and they run together. And they told us to go over there, and we went over there. Of course, the air was full of choppers, and there wasn't anything left. So it just a matter of we had to stay out there to almost dark to blow up the radio that was still intact in the medevac.
Are you talking about peanuts?
Huh?
Peanuts? Is that what you're talking about?
No, this was at Camp Low.
Oh.
So that was Highway 9 connecting over to Quezon,
Yep.
and that was what was so dangerous. Couldn't go there until, well, it was still dangerous, but in April they decided
They
airlifted us over to 689, 471. I think we touched down on 471, didn't we?
Well, we went up part of Route 9. We got ambushed part way up, and then got choppered up to Quezon, and then up to 689.
Right. Landed on the finger.
Yeah.
One company went one way, and we went up
Yeah.
top of the hill.
Yeah. I knew we didn't land on top of 689.
No,
I knew
no.
we landed down there in.
Now, once y'all went out into this part of the bush, and are you still doing
That was a whole
these?
different world.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Are you still doing these overnight ambush kind of things?
Not so much.
Not
in Quezon.
as much.
Well, that's what I wonder.
Not
Did
the-
your strategy
not
or your
the
tactics?
distance out. I mean,
We
change.
still had bushwhacks.
Yeah, we
Same
still have
kind of
not, just
thing.
not as
yeah,
many.
but you'd go out the gate and go maybe a couple hundred yards, and
Yeah, I
that was
did.
it.
I did.
You know.
My
Well, I know
orders might have been to go
everybody
400 or
did.
500, but I went a
You
couple
know,
hundred.
They
and
said,
And you'd run into
go 2 valleys
In the-
over. Fuck you.
when you got out to 200. Did you get into action and then
no,
you did?
no.
Or what do you mean?
Hopefully not.
Oh, that's where you set up your ambush.
yeah,
I mean, I
Yeah,
got it.
you didn't.
Yeah.
If you went further, you were going to get your
You were
shit
trouble.
kicked
Okay. All right.
because they were out there. They were everywhere.
Yeah.
That was their country.
I can remember once
I'm
in a
gonna
while
call
they would probe
Saturday.
the lines with grenades,
Is that okay?
and we're trying to figure out how could they get that close that they're throwing grenades.
And then that's exactly right.
We'll take
But
a look.
also up there around
I'm going to
Quezon,
call Saturday now.
we had
See if
these
he answers.
rock apes up there.
Rock 8.
Rock apes.
Apes.
They're,
say,
they're,
okay.
they're
Oh,
about
really?
that- yeah, they're about that tall. So you'd
And
be
they
there.
throw rocks.
You'd be there at night.
They would.
You'd be me and Sadly be down there or something. You're out there
On the ambush
all
setup,
over.
and
and all of a sudden
Sure,
you'd hear
okay.
thump thump grenade.
3 to 1.
You know,
It's all
and
right.
you'd stay down and no grenades went off. So you'd raise back up. Thump, 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 grenade. It's them apes out there throwing rocks.
It's all right. That's it.
and intelligence hadn't picked up on the apes, huh?
Yeah, we just.
But I mean, the first night you went out there, you didn't know what they were. I mean,
no, I mean,
you
well,
thought
you
it
know,
was
when you
grenades.
hear a get down,
Get down.
because it's either an ape or a grenade, you know.
Now, this event that now you say you knew. Did you know Steve Joyner in country life?
No,
Only
I,
after.
I,
Only
I
after.
only know of him. I
Only
don't
knew
personally
Allen.
know him.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm calling Rick Saturday
Okay,
now.
yeah, go ahead.
See if we can
Yeah,
get
Steve
him.
Joyner was over there in the case, from what I know, and he was in Norman's platoon in TBS.
Well, he was killed at Fui Nui, which was the worst battle 3-4 was ever in.
In the Quezon area, or at Quezon or whatever. Yeah.
Yep, he's gone.
Yeah, no, he was. Fort William was 3 days of.
So y'all went over in that direction in April, and then they abandoned Quezon, or the decision to was in May.
Hey, Rick.
I think it
Doc.
was a little later than that, wasn't it?
We're all.
Well, you
what,
said it
trying
was
to call
June
you?
before when you got malaria,
So,
and you
all
were
that-
still over there
yeah,
until
I'm just
then.
doing this
Quezon was still
taping
there in
interview
June.
kind of.
But when you came,
But I know for a fact that
Hang up.
when I left, there was no more Quezon.
yeah. So when you came back from malaria, what are we talking about? July, late July, maybe something like that.
Yeah, toward the end of June.
And so Quezon's gone.
yeah,
You were still Kilo 3-4.
yeah.
Where did you go? Where
We
were?
moved around.
Did y'all go back over to GLM?
No, stayed in
LZ
Quezon.
You stayed. Oh, you
LZ
stayed around.
Robin?
Yeah.
So the base had been abandoned,
The base
but
was
y'all
gone.
were still there.
Yeah, yeah, and we was moving. Instead of having a permanent perimeter, we moved. We dug in every night. We had no concertina. We
So you didn't really have a base as you had.
No.
Now you know that is interesting in the sense. It's interesting to me. It's life and death to you guys.
Well, see, that's
But what I
that's
read,
what the Army did a lot.
well, what I read though was so you know, well, I guess it's up to the historians, but you know, McNamara was out at the end of February of '68 as Secretary
not
of Defense.
soon enough.
Okay, and whether he was fired or whatever,
Should have been
kicked up
shot. By
And
fucking
Asked
fire
not to come
okay,
back.
the decision, and then Westmoreland was he
Should
was
have been
allowed to hang
shot by
around
a
for
firing
a few
squad.
months, but he was basically taken out of the loop as far as decision making. Then he
Well,
went.
he's a fucking lunatic.
Well, I understand. Or at
I'm
least I-
entitled to my opinion.
No, it's not an opinion. It's probably accepted fact. But they also said that in that time, so we're talking about end of February into March. You know, there's been changes. New Secretary of Defense comes in, and that the strategy of a caisson type defense or whatever you want to call it, that went out the window. And
it never
that,
made sense.
Well, I understand. Well, McNamara's gone. The McNamara line's gone.
Right.
Okay,
And
and it's been
Westmoreland's
tested.
idea-
And so that when the decision was made to abandon Quezon, that was also sort of, I guess they could explain it logically in a way, as a transition to a more mobile force.
It
What
was
you're
also
describing
kicking the
is
gut
kind
for
of
the-
that way.
no permanent
A
perimeter.
kick
Yeah,
in the
right,
gut
right.
for all the people that had been there, stayed there, defended it, and suffered through it. It was like,
Have
you're
y'all-
worthless.
Have y'all looked at Quezon? Have y'all Googled Quezon anytime lately? There's pictures out there around Quezon. And
Oh,
it
they
just
got a fucking Walmart there
burns
now,
me
probably.
up. They've got these pictures out there that the NBA, the North Vietnamese, the Vietnamese are taking, and one of them is a tank, and it says, "This tank captured during the Battle of Quezon." Right. Then it goes on. It shows a C-130. This airplane captured during the siege of Quezon.
Yeah, well.
They
Ca-
lost
captured
their
by
butt.
who?
They didn't capture nothing.
No, they didn't.
But they've got if you Google it and
Captured
you look
by
at
the
pictures on
media.
Google, pull them up, and it'll make you so mad you want to buy a 40.
Because I remember, you know, there's a famous film clip of a C-130. You know, at Quezon, I guess in the worst of times, the C-130s couldn't even stop.
No.
Yes.
They
No.
did those,
No.
Yes.
you know, whatever you call those drops.
David
And
Duncan
then-
Douglas has the best photography of Quezon, bar none.
And there's one film clip of a C-130, I think it was C-130, doing that or trying to do it,
They
and they lost control.
they came in.
Dropping the pallets off the back.
Burned up all
Yeah,
the
they
runs
quit.
on
They
it.
quit landing, but what they done
Yeah.
is they put everything on conveyors, on conveyor belt, and the C-130 would come in and touch
Drop
down, and then they'd just start shoving all them pallets on the conveyors off the back. But then later on, it got to where they wasn't even doing that. They was just flying over and parachuting
Dropping
everything,
down.
dropping everything down.
Now, when you guys were in that area in the hills before June, before you got medical leave, did you ever go on the Quezon base? I mean, in those days,
No.
you were on the hills.
I did.
I did.
Okay.
I did just to go get some supplies. I went to Charlie Med.
But it wasn't like you
But
went
it-
there at night or during the daytime. and-
No,
it wasn't a security.
I was
factor.
medevaced in the, that's where I was.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
way down the hill.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a pretty good way.
Well, I got medevaced in there once. We had gotten, we were on a patrol, gotten artillery rounds on the way back here and mortar rounds on the way in. And just from running around from the heat,
Yeah, the
I passed out.
Heat exhaustion.
And
Yeah.
rather than carry me back, they threw me in a chopper and medevaced me to Quezon. And I was only there a couple hours. They just fed me a lot of fluid.
Yeah.
So
And
Alan,
I came back.
when you came back in the end of July and you were still with Kilo and y'all were doing these mobile, what did you call them? No perimeter,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. So you
around the Quezon area. And then is that how you ended your tour over there?
Foxtrot
doing
Ridge.
that?
Yeah.
Foxtrot Ridge.
Yeah, which was would have been south, almost east, I guess, of the old Quezon Combat
Base.
Yeah, and we was up on Foxtrot Ridge, and the lieutenant that night at the meeting, he said, "Will, you're going back tomorrow." All right, you know. Well, that night I just moved up to the. This is my last night in country. So I wish the boys fare you well, and I moved up to the CP with the lieutenant. I wanted right in the middle of it. Okay, so we dig in that night, and I'm up there with the lieutenant, and we had a North LP and a South LP. North LP reports movement. And I said, uh-oh. South LP reports movement. We're going to get hit tonight. My last night in country.
Good thing you're in the middle.
Yeah. Well, it rocked on and got up. No, we didn't get, nothing happened. So then the LZ, the only level place, was down probably 200 yards from where the rest of the guys was. And there was two of us coming back. So we get down there and they have Angel, which is the FO for the choppers.
Yeah.
It's this foggy. You can't see nothing. And the choppers are down at Kowloon. So Angel and the choppers are talking, and Angel said, "Yeah, it's a little foggy," and they could see, they could see up on top of the Foxtrot Ridge, and they said, "Yeah, we can't even see the top of the ridge." "Yeah, that's a little foggy." So we sat and we sat and we sat, and I said, "Angel, you got to get me out of here."
Are you
today."
down there in the LZ, or are you at the 200-yard
I'm
marker?
at the 200 yards.
Waiting
Yeah,
for the
waiting
chopper
to come up and get me.
Yeah.
I said, "Angel, you got to get me out of here today. I'm ready to go." And he said, "Don't worry, Will, I'll get you out." So long about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he told him, he called down there and he said, yeah, it's clearing up, but you can get in here." "Man, we still can't see." "Oh yeah, it's just you can get in here." So you hear the chopper, toom, 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 you can't see. And I said, yeah, come on, yeah, you're doing good. Yeah, come on, you're doing good. Well, you pop a green smoke when they get in close, so they know where you're at. So I mean, they broke out just by the top of them trees up there, and Angel had already popped a green smoke. And when he popped that smoke, he gave me that pin. And so I stuck the pin in my pocket, and I kept it for years and years and years. I've lost it now.
Now, was that FO? Was he down at the LZ?
Yeah, he was with me. He was right there with me.
So he's with you?
Yeah, he's with me talking to.
But he's got
in the Marine Corps, our radios, we can't talk to aircraft.
Yeah.
We cannot talk to
I think
helicopters. We can't talk to jets. We can't talk to anybody. So you have to have a
FO with every
yeah.
group or whatever.
So they come. It's a Chinook, and he comes in. Of course, there's no windows on the Chinook, but they're loaded down with sea rations. Well, when the chopper's coming in, one of my fire teams comes down to help unload the chopper. Well, we run on the chopper, and this guy was Mississippi, from down in Mississippi, just as country as you could be. Well, of course, naturally, as soon as the chopper sets down, here come the mortars, We're starting to get mortared. But I'm in the chopper. Now, if the chopper gets knocked out, I'm just there. But if that chopper takes off, I'm going with it. But we're taking them sea rations and throwing them out the window. And they said it looked like a conveyor belt, them sea rations coming out of there. We would get.
Well, that was your fire team. They were trying to get those rations so you could get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Then of course they come down, get the sea rations, carry them back up to everybody else, and split them up.
And what day was that? Do you remember? August.
It was in the.
Well, you're supposed to be doing 13. Well, I guess technically you were doing. Well, you didn't do.
I
you didn't do the full
tour.
tour.
No, I didn't do the full tour.
Okay.
See, I didn't have enough time left. I was just in for 2 years. Yeah. See,
So your 2 years ran out before your. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they honored
what are you going to do? Sue them?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, when I came back, of course, you leave Nunn, you come back into Okinawa, and you process out of Okinawa, and it's kind of a funny deal. When Norman and I, when we left out of Travis, we flew into Hawaii, refueled, then on into Okinawa. So we leave out of Da Nang, and the captain comes on. I mean Okinawa. I'm sorry. We leave out of Okinawa, and the captain comes on there, and he says, "We're flying nonstop to Oakland. when we get to Oakland, we'll have a crew change, and those are years going down to, and I don't remember, seemed like to me, I want to say that they landed in El Toro, but it may have been L.A., but anyway, those of you that's going on farther south, said there'll be a crew change, just stay on the airplane, and then we'll fly y'all on down south. Okay, so we're flying along there, dumb, fat, and happy, and the captain comes on, and he said, due to miscalculations of the Gulf Stream, he said, we're going to make an emergency landing in Cold Bay, Alaska for fuel. And I said, great. I'm going to get killed on the way home because they run out of gas. We landed in Cold Bay, Alaska, and they brought out a fuel truck like the local co-ops have. You know, it's just a bob truck. Hook it up. And I guess you have to go through customs because this pickup truck pulls up there, and this woman with a sheriff's badge gets in the bed, climbs up on the roof of the truck, then climbs in the airplane, walks down the aisle, turns around, walks back down the aisle, gets on the cab, gets in the bed, and drives off. And then we get our fuel and we take off.
They didn't bring up a beer truck or
No,
like that. Was that on the plane?
This
This was just Flying Tiger Airlines, right?
No,
Delusional.
This is a military.
no, it's I don't remember.
Some other contract.
I don't remember
I flew
what.
Continental.
So you came into California either through El Toro or
I went to El Toro.
Okay.
And I spent 10 days. And all of my money that I got when I was in Vietnam went into a savings plan, except my last check. And so when I got to El Toro, I had 10 days and $600, and I went through every bit of it. We had a ball out there. And then
at El Toro.
at El Toro. Well, Anaheim, LA.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I got on a plane, come to Memphis, come to Brownsville, and end of story.
Now, but you got this pink card at El
El
Toro?
Toro.
Oh, so from that point, because your 2
Absolutely.
years have run up, and that's it.
That's
and
it.
you're in the reserve, and you're
That's it.
basically a free person.
Yep.
Did you ever, being in the reserve like that for those 3 or 4 more years?
4 years, yeah.
Did you ever have to, no drill, I mean, there was no monthly meeting, or it's not like that at all?
No, they didn't. Actually, you might say the Marine Corps didn't even know I existed at that point in time. But then, in what we determined it was 72, I got through the mail your final honorary discharge.
And you got, when you came back for good to Brownsville, as far as employment or job, or did you go back to Turner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
see, Mr. P.A. wrote me a letter when I
While
was
you were in Vietnam.
Yeah, and said, "Don't worry about your job. Your job's here waiting on you." And so then when I came home, my supervisor, he said, "Don't go back to work right now." He said, "Let's wait. Squirrel season come in the 1st of September." We went down on Hatchie River and squirrel hunted and fished and had yellow cat and squirrels, and that was something that one thing that really, I guess you said I had a little squirrel hunting. You know, you're out there squirrel hunting where somebody's half a mile away from you and they shoot a squirrel. There's a mortar round going off.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mortar round going off. You know, get your attention. Get your attention, because you ain't that far removed. You know, I'm less than a month removed from the actual mortar round coming in. You know, so yeah, a shotgun go off and you hunker down and listen. You know.
Car back,
But
car
you-
end of a whiplash.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you did get involved in the VFW in Brownsville, or a little bit
Yeah.
later, maybe, something like that.
Well, yeah, of course. You know, did you know Mr. Son Hendren?
I knew, I remember that grocery store.
He was the VFW. In
Yeah,
Brownsville.
yeah.
And of course, I carried milk to his store. Well, first time when I went in after Vietnam, he said, "Welcome to the VFW. Now give me $25, $30." Whatever it was.
Now, was it so through that or in Brownsville or Hayward County or whatever? I know there were other Marine Vietnam veterans that were coming back, or was there ever any? Now maybe it wasn't a good idea anyway, but there was nothing other than what
Yeah.
the VFW was, and you said that was.
You know, it's been too long ago for me to remember. You know more about it than I do. I know that Mike Turner
yeah, exactly.
was Mike in Vietnam or?
So there is a resource. Actually, there's a guy in the Netherlands. I hadn't told you guys about this. There's a guy in the Netherlands, in Holland, and back in the late 80s, he was a high school teacher. His wife might have been too. their whole family came to Brownsville on a 1-year exchange teaching something or other. He taught in the high school. Now, I wasn't there, but, you know, the people in Brownsville, Fox Smith was a good friend of his. And so this man then, that was in the late 80s, in the mid-90s, he came back to the States, not so much Brownsville, but someplace in Alabama, I think. And he started working on a PhD in history. And his subject, I don't know if you've ever, I could get you a copy of this. You might be interested in this. His subject, being from Holland, was something like the effect of the Vietnam War on a small town, Brownsville, Haywood County, Tennessee. And in the process, he did a lot of research, but in the summer of 1996, he wound up interviewing about 50 people in Brownsville, or connected with Brownsville. Veterans, Vietnam veterans. I guess you might have moved away at the time, something like that. Citizens, civilians, parents, you know, of Vietnam. And he came to this camp meeting to interview people who had known or knew of Norman Lane. And so he came down right there to that where Linda Lane's camp is now, Norman's camp when he was a kid. And just anybody that wanted to go down there could go down there. And he had a recorder, and he sat there and he just listened, you know. This was in 1996. I went down there. You know, at the time I was, you know, I didn't know what I was talking about, and I was more emotional about it and stuff like that. But several other people came down there. Mostly older relatives. Lynn Mann, I think, was one, you know. Nobody my age. And anyway, so that was the last I'd heard of it. And then we went on a trip, my family, like beach or something. 2005. This is 9 years later. I never had any more kind. He went back to Holland, you know, and that was that. And I got home and we're checking the mail that had been collected by our neighbor. And here's this book about like this, paperback. It's his PhD dissertation. And it's a copy of this, The Vietnam War as Viewed by a Small Southern Town. There's the interview with me, verbatim, because he had a recorder, just transcribed it. And it wasn't just me. Norman's mother was in there. Yeah. She didn't have a good reaction. And it's understandable.
Sure.
But what's in that book is it's not reliable. She says things about Uncle Mern as who you knew. You guys didn't know. Norman's grandfather, who had lost his son in World War II, as having motivated Norman to go to the Marine Corps. It just doesn't make any.
I know.
I don't know. Maybe you know something, but
I think I've related to you. But when Norman and I was over there together, my mother and Norman's mother,
you're talking about
constantly talking. Mm-hmm. And if Mother got a letter from me, she'd call Norman's mother and say, "Everything's fine. I got a letter." Mm-hmm. When Norman's mother got a letter, she'd call Mother, "Everything's fine." Mm-hmm. Well, after March 29th, Norman's mother called Mother and said, "I don't want to hear another word about Vietnam."
And I think, I think it wasn't just that, but and that's the way it was. And
that was the end of it.
Just then whether she even sat down for this interview, I don't even know why she even did it, But anyway. That's right. But anyway, the book is a great resource. He's a historian, so he had done the history of Vietnam and the separation and da-de-da and da-de-da. And then he focused in on Haywood County. This is really quite a resource. I'll give you a copy of it. It's just and I've got multiple copies, and I'm in contact with him because he has been, his book really kind of started this. Mm-hmm. The section on Norman did, and then at the same time, we've been in constant email contact, on these works and some of the write-ups I've sent to him because he's kind of a literary kind of a guy. And he went to Mr. Owen Burgess, and all of those old States graphics. This was a weekly newspaper, once a week. Mm-hmm. And they went through all of these microfilms and stuff like that. And he wasn't just covering, not entirely Vietnam. I mean, there was civil rights, which is, I don't know about you, Allen, but for you guys, and you, Lynn, I would say, being at my age in Brownsville in 1965, 1966, Vietnam was on the radar, civil rights was through the ceiling. And integration and the whole 9 yards of that. He addressed that too. And I tell you one thing you would appreciate in this document. There was and he would talk, Mr. Vogt, that's the man that wrote this book. He would talk about individual people who didn't come back from, other people's stories. And Mr. Owen had been a B-17 crewman, shot down over Schweinfurt in one of the worst B-17 days in history. POW 2 years almost. Came back and was editor of the newspaper. His son was my best friend in grade school and so forth. You knew Janice probably. Yeah. Taylor Chapman.
Yeah. See, Taylor was my best man.
Yeah.
We double dated a lot together.
Yeah. So Mr. Owen Bruce, he had this experience, came back, became the editor of the local newspaper in the early 60s, and it was a small operation, but it was, it was reasonably well done. It was our pay. You were still getting it over in Vietnam. Norman came to see you to get the graphic. I mean, what better a recommendation can you say there? And so there's a story in there. There's several men from Haywood County that did not make it back from Vietnam. I know there's at least one or two African American. I think one of them was in the Marine Corps. We'll go up to the monument, we'll see the names. There was a guy I read about, could have been Army, I don't remember. But I read his virtual wall thing, and the action, overrunning, whatever battle that he was killed in. Another man in that unit, right there in the action, I guess, got the Medal of Honor. So that would say to me that whatever this guy from Brownsville was doing. The guy, somebody was mentioning this case the other night, William Farrell from Cocoa, out there near Stanton. Korean War veteran, career Army, POW in Korea, marched in Lyndon Johnson's inauguration parade in '65 in Washington. Battle of the Yadrang Valley. What is that? Landing Zone X-ray was the disaster, the march out, so the battle was one thing, and then they were relieved by, John Carlos knew the whole story. They were relieved by one battalion. They marched, or they were helicoptered out. When the relief battalion left, they were told to march through the jungle to this LZ, and it was an L-shaped ambush. It was like, no. William A. Farrell, like in the forward platoon, didn't come back.
See, I don't know about the Army, but VFW for anybody. But when I was in the VFW, I was the only Vietnam veteran in there.
Yeah. So in that, the short answer to the question that you asked about Mike Turner, in this book that Mr. Vogt did, I'm almost certain, 100%, that Mike Turner is mentioned in there as being with the Marines and as having come back in early '68 from Vietnam. I'm almost certain of that, but I have to go back and look at it. And then I've got actually multiple copies of that dissertation. I'll send you one, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Mike was in the Marines. I certainly wasn't sure. I'm sure at the time I knew whether or not he was in Vietnam, but I don't. Today I don't know.
Well, the other guy that he was doing was a very sort of popular guy was Charles Kazort. Now, do you know who he is?
I know him well.
Yeah, I thought had gone in the Marines and Vietnam. I know he came back in '68 because his what was the connection? One of the ladies that worked at the drugstore, where I became employed in summer of '68, she was connected to him, or Phyllis Stoops, who he married. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I remember when he came back because of them talking about it. And I thought it was Marine Corps Vietnam. Mike English says he thinks it was Army. I don't know.
See, I didn't even know Charles Kazart was in the military.
Yeah. And then that, but I was here and you weren't, at the time. This is in the time frame you're still over there, see?
Yeah.
So in this book, the one other thing I was going to tell you about that's really, really very nice. One of these boys comes back from Vietnam, lived out in Stanton, somewhere out there. Anyway, the funeral service is out there in the county. And Mr. Owen went to the service. Because he was a newspaper publisher or whatever. And he went there. And in the States Graphic the week later, he wrote kind of an editorial about having been at this boy's funeral. And he said he was standing there and he was thinking about the crewmen on his B-17 who never came back, by name, and how it all, as a veteran, to him, connected and so forth. But I've seen it. It's quite a read.
John Carter made a statement there yesterday that kind of hit home with me. He said, he put, what did he say, how many, he put several in a body bag and sent them home, you know.
Yeah.
And he said, now, this is just talking about yesterday at the service. He said, this is just one community and one service. Look how many of these took place across the United States. Mm-hmm. And that kind of hit home,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the way there's something I wrote. None of this is like public. I'll be glad any of it. You can have copies of it, whatever. But there's one way I thought about something, and I said, Norman Lane's life and death, with a focus on his loss, came at just such a pathetic time in the nation's history, if you think about it. Martin Luther King assassinated the day before. Mm-hmm. He's buried out here the next afternoon. National Guard from here. Norman Lane's coming this way. They're going to Memphis. Mm-hmm. That night, etc. Robert F. Kennedy killed 2 months later. Riots. I went back through from January through the time that Norman Lane was killed, and it's just McNamara resigned. Johnson. Norman Lane was killed on Friday afternoon. That Sunday night, Johnson puts a limited halt on the bombing again, and he's not going to run for re-election. Yeah. And then 3 days later, Martin Luther King gets killed. Yeah. I was only 16 now. If I'd been old enough to really absorb this stuff, I might have gone and jumped out of a building or something.
And you had the watch riots out there in California?
Yeah. All kinds of stuff. You had the Pueblo incident over in Korea. I asked Bill Willey. He said, well, we're on such a big operation in January. I had no clue. I didn't hear about it for days, Yeah. So on and on and on. And then McNamara gets out and they change the whole picture of that. And what's all this strategy about? And now we're going to do something completely different or whatever. Stop the bombing, stop the shelling, whatever.
You would think after Korea, after Vietnam, that we would never have anything like Iraq and Afghanistan, where they went in there not to win.
I tell you what, on Iraq, I've talked to you guys, I've talked to John Carlos, I've talked to Doc, and totally independently, within like a 2-day period, I was talking to Doc. This was after me and Doc had been talking off and on for 2 or 3 months. And I can't remember how it came up. Oh, I don't know. We were talking something sort of like what we talked about one time with Doc, and he said, like Richard Carlton, my friend, said, well, we never served. We were in college. We never thought about it. We had to register, and that was that. They had the lottery, And so, Richard might say, well, we feel bad about it or whatever. And Doc said, no, I don't hold anything against anybody just because you didn't. But then he said, we had been having this in a phone conversation. He said he'd gone to some dentist or doctor or something, and the doctor had been in Vietnam. He could have gone, but he took a deferment or something like that. Well, Doc said, I don't blame, And then Doc went off on Dick Cheney. 4 deferments, and then he went off on Iraq. And it wasn't very long after that. And I'm talking to John Carlos on the phone. Now, this is the first time he called me. 45-minute conversation. I didn't even know he'd been in Green Berets, or Vietnam for that matter. And he goes on and on and on. I'm just talking about the yard ring and whatever little bit of thing I know. And I don't know how we got to it. And he got to it and he said, and he's just like, almost like super patriot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, almost it's a political thing with him, or whatever you want to call it. And then he did it. I mean, he's talking from where he speaks. And then he said something like, yeah, and then the decision to invade Iraq. and it's just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. And I guess that's kind of like what you're saying too. I mean, I don't know. I'm not much of a warrior or a warrior thinker or what should we do or what's. But I know when that Iraq stuff was coming around, I know me and my best friend at work, we would talk on the phone like daily, and that stuff with the United Nations and Colin Powell and all that was just, I never liked it. I mean, once they went in, you had to support them. You wanted them to do well or whatever. Joel Mann will be there at your dinner tonight. He was, I think he was there on the original invasion. I know he was there. I think he was in Fallujah, whether it was spring of '04 when they got in the first mess there, or whether it was later that year. He was there. So y'all can talk to him and get his perspective on it, because he's in the volunteer army. He went in 2001, probably right after 9/11, or possibly. So that'd be an interesting perspective for you guys. Maybe he should have been here. Actually, could be interesting.
Yeah, well,
yeah. Far as calls, let me see, how'd this go? He has a nephew, I guess it is, named Chris Call. Chris Call's Tennessee Air National Guard. He's a helicopter pilot, Black Hawk. I think he did at least one tour in Afghanistan, at least, and maybe more. So, we ought to talk to those guys. Daniel Thornton that came down there yesterday. I don't know what he did, I know he was over there. Of course, these days it's all volunteers, so, in your guys' days, no comparison. And that's what struck me about John Carlos saying, in those days, with a 2S deferment at Vanderbilt and a free ride to wherever he wanted to go, whatever he wanted to do, he said, fuck it, I'm going. Yeah. And did.
Yeah.
Just like my dad. I mean, my dad's story, and I'll just tell you guys the story. My mom tried to kind of give you the lecture the other night to make sure my dad gets equal time. But it's a pretty good story about America, I think, and fighting. And my dad, well, you knew Charlie and Austin Claiborne. Mm-hmm. My dad was their first cousin. Mm-hmm. Lived out on Memphis Highway, not far from Dale Claiborne Black lives in that house right now.
Well, is that Mr. Gene? Where's Mr.
Mr. Gene was next door.
Okay.
Okay. So they were raised out there. Let's see. My dad was born in 1916. His closest brother in 1917. His name was Robert. My dad's name was Alex. So our son's Robert and Alex. Mm-hmm. And then they had a sister the next year, and then another son, Gene, senior, Dale's dad, about 1919. Then another son, about 1920. And this is like dirt poor farming, hard work, milking cows, 4 a.m. and all that stuff. And they were, I think the youngest son was about 8, and they were out there on the Memphis Highway, and they'd still, wherever the school was, at the Anderson or whatever it was, and they'd take a ride back out. And so this younger son had taken a ride out and was crossing the road, and somebody was on the highway to Memphis and hit him, and he died when my dad was 12. And then they had the Depression. And then things were doing, my dad stayed out of school for 1 year so that he and his closest brother could be together. And they would walk from that house to Haywood High, or Anderson, or wherever they were, together. And they went through.
Pretty good little old hunt.
Yeah. And so they went through. They were both on the football team, stars, actually. My dad got a job up here at Martin's department store. He possibly could have made something of it,
Thought about Martin's in years.
Yeah, and he was still farming. That was his real love. And then the war came along. He had an opportunity to go to UT and try it for the football team, which is a big deal back in those days. He didn't do it because he wanted to stay and help his mom and dad with the farm. And so his younger brother, the one that was a year younger, stayed here in town and worked at a service station. He had kind of an engineering skill. War came. the younger brother got drafted immediately. Went to Fort Knox in like January '42 for the tanks, and my dad, he didn't want to volunteer. He waited. He got drafted later, the '42. Both went in. Both went over to North Africa with different units. Both come up into Italy in late '43, early '44. My dad gets into Italy around Naples about March of '44. He sees his brother. They're just riding down on the road or something, and then just like that. Thousands of GIs over there. And then it turns out that there was a big action in the war in Italy. There was what they called one of the lines. Hitler and the Nazis had set up two major defensive lines across Italy. This was the southernmost, south of Rome. And May 11, 1944, my dad was out there on the beach near the Gulf of Gaeta, which is in that area. And he was reading and he was doing sort of scouting to prevent German spies from coming in from the water. And he had a copy of Sergeant Stipes, and he said at 11 o'clock that night when the artillery lit up, he could read the newspaper. It was just hell. And this is all Allied. And that night the tanks moved up, and that's when his brother was killed. And, so they went through all that, and then that's part of your family heritage. His other brother, Gene, was a P-40 pilot over in China. He got shot down later that year, and so at one time he went missing for 3 weeks. He was shot down in his P-40 by a Japanese fighter. He knew that if he bailed out, they'd shoot him and shoot the parachute. So he went down with the plane as much as he could, jumped out while the plane's doing this, broke an ankle, and was rescued by the Chinese, who were fighting the Japanese. And they kept him for 3 weeks and then returned him back to his unit and whatever. And he said he never ate rice again. And then he said his last mission, believe it or not, in early 45, I guess, was over Hanoi, reconnaissance or something like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So that's, where's all this war, heroes, villains, enemies? My family's paid a price. You guys have paid a price. Norman Lane paid a price. Yeah. But the history of this place was just so, when I was a kid, even when you were a kid, so predominantly World War II, because everybody had been there.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Do you remember Mr. Paul Winrow?
Mm-hmm.
His son Johnny, you might have overlapped with him in high school a bit. He's a journalist, and he wrote an article, this was like 20 years. Johnny, about 10 years after Mr. Paul had been killed, was also the 50th anniversary of D-Day. And Johnny wrote an article. He was up in Minneapolis, big-time newspaper. And he wrote about all the men, and every time there was a gathering, and he was a kid, and I was a kid, and all the men would get together, and they'd talk all about it. And then he went down the list. Mr. Alec, Italy, da-da-da, Mr. Jimmy, da-da-da, and all this kind of stuff. And that's the way it was. And we just grew up with it. And then even well after Vietnam, it was still, World War II veterans were still because everybody had done it. Mm-hmm. Vietnam was very different because it was a class war, or one way to look at it.
Larry Land got killed in Vietnam.
Yeah, I know. He was, I knew of him, or of his death. I didn't know him, but because of his brother that was working up there at the program when I was like a junior, senior in high school.
See, his sister was a year ahead of me, and I think Larry was a year behind me.
In 65. So I think he was killed in like March of 67, if that makes, with the Marines. But not Quang Tri. I think it was Quang Nam or something like that. Sounded like, to me, sounded like a different place from where you guys were. So, but we knew there was a very popular girl. The Pettigrews that ran the quality drugstore. So one of their sons was Jack. Jack was Mac Thorne's age, same class. Jack married a girl whose parents had moved here from some factory back in maybe mid-60s. The last name was Johnston. They had a daughter that was my age, real popular. The family was very, and they had a son who was Jack's age named Rick. And I don't know exactly why. I remember him in high school a little bit. He went. I don't know if he got drafted or whatever, and he disappeared in a helicopter accident.
Okay. They lived next door to Mother and Dad. over on Key Corner.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that's where your mother and dad.
Yeah, at the time.
At the time.
Yeah,
The
Mother-
Johnsons.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Rick and I got acquainted, and I guess I was back from, either when I came back from Vietnam or before I went to Vietnam. Done a lot of bow hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I had a fishing reel that goes on a boat, and Rick and I was talking one day, and he said, "I want to go." He was shooting a bow, and he said, "I want to go fishing, a bow hunting with. I want to go fishing with my boat." And he said, "But I don't have a reel." I said, "Wait just a minute." So I went in the house and I came back out and I had the reel, the line, and the arrow. And I said, "Here, Rick, take this." And I said, "Give it back sometime because I'm not using it right now." Well, he went to Vietnam, got killed, of course. Naturally, no way am I going to go over and say, "Miss Johnson, he borrowed," it. Yeah.
So what I know is he graduated in '68 with Mac and those guys, spring of '68. He's a popular guy from what I remember. I mean, he's
Good kid.
And he was an Eagle Scout, I think. So he may have had some kind of outdoors, thing. I don't know what he did after graduating from high school. I don't know if he went to college and didn't work out, or never went to college, or whatever, or got drafted, or volunteered, or...
So I would guess, I'm taking it in what you're saying in '68, I must have been back in Vietnam when he borrowed that reel.
If he had graduated from high school, that would be correct, yeah. And then, actually in this book that Vogt did, so this thing it actually got published in like 2003, I think is the date on it. And he interviewed, the Johnson's parents, Rick Johnson's parents. He definitely interviewed his sister, who was my age. And there was some kind of snafu. There was something about the helicopter accident. And it was like, we don't know what happened. Was it a crash? Was it a...
Now, he was a pilot, right?
I don't know if he was a pilot. He was definitely in a helicopter, though.
Yeah.
Like a crew man of some sort.
I was thinking now, and that don't amount to much, but I was thinking that he was a chopper pilot and got killed in Vietnam.
Now, the only question I just don't know was he the pilot? And anyway, so this thing happened in 1970. I was working up at that drugstore. I remember John Burgess came over and told me about it. And in this thesis where he interviewed Susan, the sister, there was something about, there was an investigation because they didn't know what had happened. And I think they found, I don't know, maybe they didn't find the wreckage even for a long time. I think that got cleared up over time as to what had happened. And then there was something about, something simple like a Purple Heart for him. And that got all snafu'd. And then finally, I think that got squared away.
Yeah, they was living next door to...
So, she had been married to Jack Pettigrew. Now, Jack Pettigrew lives across the street from my mom's house, but they divorced some years ago, and probably, quite possibly, Rick's death was a factor in that, you know what I mean?
Dad built the house they lived in.
The Johnstons, yeah. I guess they both passed away or moved
I'm
away
sure.
or something. So in the book, I think Rick Johnston and Norman Lane get the most text, if you want to call it that. But every casualty is talked about in some respect. So,
No, I hadn't thought about Rick until you just mentioned that
Well,
for years.
Yeah. I remember going to the WOW on Friday nights, and he was there. But my cousin Gene was in that class too, so I assumed they all knew each other. I don't really know. So, Linda, one thing I'm going to do after you guys, after tomorrow, during the week, when she came over the other night, did you see that portrait she brought over? Well, that portrait of Norman, that is the actual portrait sketch that Red did. So then, of course, we got a digital version. That's what showed up on the website. The original, and there's only one, that went to Linda. See? So that was one nice thing for us. And then she brought over that she has some kind of scrapbook of Norman stuff. And I'm going to go over and ask her tomorrow, after things calm down a little bit, if I can sit down and take a look through that of it. Because could be some very interesting things in there.
Yeah, my life is going to have a hole in it after this is over, not hearing from you.
No. I was telling them up there at the cemetery. I went up there at the cemetery. I was late because I think I was talking to you guys or Doc or somebody, and I went up there, and there's probably 50, 100 people still standing around. And I walked up and I said, somebody's waiting for words from you. I said, look, you've heard everything. I'm just like, but anyway, I was glad I went up there because Rita and Becky now, did you know them? So Rita would have graduated in 68. Becky, I think, was a year before that. But they both had Norman in classes at Haywood.
I looked at those girls, but I couldn't.
Well, yeah, 50, 45 years. Yeah. But they were both standing there. And there was a guy named Jim Duke. His dad was a National Guard guy, James Duke. His son, Jim. Yeah. Jim was in that class. Okay. And, because Becky married Jerry Baggett. You knew him probably. He was up there. I didn't see him in 50 years.
I walked through the door there at the church yesterday, and I looked, and I saw, I know that guy there.
I know who you're talking about, too. But go ahead.
And I went over there, and I sat down. Then when I was talking, I glanced over there, and who is that? It was Jerry Baggett.
Oh, yeah. He was there.
It was Jerry Baggett.
So he and Becky got married. It's amazing how things from 47 years ago, and now they become significant today, He and Becky were dating back in high school. And she told me later, in the last few months, I knew they'd gotten married and stuff like that. I had no clue whatever had happened, Her dad ran the Buick dealership. You remember out there on Washington? Sowell Buick Chevrolet? Yeah. That was Mr. Sowell, whatever, John Sowell, whatever.
Yeah, John Sowell.
And she wrote me a few months ago, and she said she sent some of the most poignant writings about her memories of Norman and stuff like that. These girls were getting letters from him from Vietnam. I would love to be able to see those, and someday I'll ask them, but I haven't asked yet. But I wrote her back. I said, this is just unbelievable. And then what she said yesterday was she was afraid she was going to lose it. That's why she wanted to go up there with Rita. She didn't want to go up there by herself. And she did great. And one time back in the past, 3 months ago or so, we were talking, and I was talking about, I was sad that I didn't go to Norman's service, and was too young to absorb it all at the time. And then she said, well, I was expecting at the time. She had a baby in 68. She and Jerry were married. And everybody, maybe she was pretty far along, I don't know. Everybody said, my mother said, don't go to the funeral, you're going to get upset, da-di-da-di-da. And she said, I went, And I was telling about Rita and Mac, and I think they said it again yesterday, somebody. They were the first to show up at the funeral.
Yeah.
And I've talked to them a little about it, and as time goes on, we'll get,
Did Norman have a military funeral?
Yes. Well, I wasn't here. There was an escort, and it was, I don't know. There was an escort, but I don't know. I'll have to have, Mac would know, though. He was there. Whether they had it like, what would be the standard for an officer? Would they have a 21, like a rifle team?
Sure.
That I don't know. Mac would know, though.
Mother, when I came back, Mother said the family requested me to accompany Norman back, but the Marine Corps don't do that. And I would have been, as much as I love Norman, I'd have been hard pressed to help my men to come back. But the Marine Corps does not provide an escort that gets to the States.
So I figured some things up from the military file, and I figured out actually some things from that Mr. Presley that was here yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very clear in the cables and so forth that when he was coming on that commercial flight from Philadelphia, there was an escort provided.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they gave the name of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But in all talking to Mr. Presley and the way things were in the early 68, they were doing a lot of these.
Mm-hmm.
And the chances that this escort was probably just pulled from some Philadelphia area, Marine, aviation, something.
And talking to the Marines out there yesterday, I guess somebody in the family had passed away. I guess maybe it was my uncle. Whatever it was. When he had a military funeral, and it was a National Guard. But I want to think that he was in maybe the Air Force or the Navy, or I don't think he was Navy, but I think anyway the National Guard done his military funeral, which wasn't even what, you know, and I had always said I thought I might want a military funeral. But I told my wife, I said, I don't want no National Guard burying me.
Well, that was probably, if it was during Iraq and the height of Iraq, you know, they were hard pressed to find people to do military
It's been
funerals.
5, 6, 7, 8 years
It
ago.
could have easily been because of that.
Maybe even longer.
I'm guessing it's got, but
Well, those guys yesterday told me if you want a military funeral, he said you'll be hard pressed to even get a couple guys to come. But he said that the Marine Corps League, whatever they was, in Jackson, would do a full Marine Corps funeral. Said they had the dress blues. Nowadays, and my wife's brother, he had a military funeral. That's who it was. It was my wife's brother. And they have a recording of taps. No one.
I think that was under stress because of the military pressure.
Yeah.
And I tell you why. Now, you know, there's officer and there's not officer. My Uncle Gene, who had been in the Air Corps, but he was a lieutenant, and he died in 2005, and that was right in the middle of Iraq and all that mess. And he didn't want it, but the family wanted it. And they had, if I remember correctly, they had a serious, full military funeral, and there wasn't a recorded taps or nothing. Dale knows, because she was there. I wasn't there.
Well, now he told me that the what was that, the Marine Corps League? Is that?
Yeah.
He said the Marine Corps League in Jackson was big enough that they could do a full Marine Corps funeral with the bagpipes, pallbearers, flag folding, and the whole 9 yards. But he said...
but it would be them, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like a...
It's Marine Corps League. Yeah.
Did you want to say any closing word or words, Randy? Anybody? Just anything? Service?
Aside from thanking you for everything you did,
Yeah.
and you know the ceremony yesterday was phenomenal. Really thankful to be a part of it.
The recording of this conversation was done in conjunction with the Norman Lane Jr. Memorial Project, who holds the copyright.